Are you looking to master the Cloud Architect technical interview? Well, if so, this video is for you. Hi, my name is Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects, and we're an organization dedicated towards building high-performance cloud computing careers. I've been working in technology now for over 25 years, and I've been coaching and mentoring others for 2 decades. And today we're going to help you master the Cloud Architect interview. But anytime we work on interview questions, we want to make sure we weave in some Cloud Architect training as well as some Cloud Architecture training. So you can be sure we're going to make sure we provide some training along with our video on Cloud Architect interview questions. The first interview question we're going to ask you is, what is a DDoS attack and how do you prevent it? What we're trying to find out here is, do you know what a DDoS attack is? And can you figure out how to thwart it? So let's start with, what is a DDoS attack? What we're looking to hear is that a DDoS attack is when a hacker compromises multiple systems and then uses these systems to launch an attack on you. And what's going on in a DDoS attack is basically what's happening is the attacker is trying to overwhelm the service capabilities of your systems. So let's say, for example, you have a web server that can process 10,000 web requests per second, and a hacker sends you 100,000 web requests per second. That 100,000 web requests per second will easily overwhelm your web server that's capable of handling only 10,000 web requests. So it can completely take your services out of action. So how do you block this? Well, when it comes to security, it's not any one thing that you use. It's a combination of a lot of things. It's like dressing for cold weather. When you're dealing with cloud security or any kind of security, you must use layers. So typically speaking, the way this is going to work is you take the outside of your network or the perimeter of your network and you stick a firewall. And the firewall blocks bad stuff from coming into your network. Behind the firewall, you're going to put something called an IDS or an IPS system. And an intrusion detection, intrusion prevention system sort of sits there and it looks for attacks, and when it sees an attack, it does things to stop the attack. Maybe it resets TCP connections, maybe it modifies the configuration on your firewall to add additional ACL type rules. Whatever the thing is going on, the IDS system sits behind the firewall. The firewall gives you a secure perimeter, and the IDS IPS system comes in and takes care of things that get past your firewall. You're also going to need to use some form of a DDoS protection. And there's various forms that are out there. AWS makes some in the form of Shield. Cloudflare does some with regards to their services, but there's a lot of different DDoS protections, and you should definitely employ one on your applications to protect your web-facing applications. Now, so if you've got a firewall at the perimeter and you've got an IDS system and you've got some DDoS protection, is that enough? Of course not. So then what you're going to do is you're going to protect the subnets where your systems live by using an access control list. And if it's AWS, we're going to call it a network ACL. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you protect the servers with something called a security group, which keeps things from getting in. So let's look at this now. Now we've got a firewall at the edge. We've got an IDS IPS system. We've got some DDoS protection. We're protecting the subnets with a network ACL, and we're protecting the host systems with a security group. But you know what, that might not be enough. You might want to put some endpoint protection on the host themselves. Maybe some anti-malware things, such as maybe a secondary firewall. So that's, realistically speaking, part of the process. And then after we get past that, let's talk about other ways that are not security oriented that will still protect against DDoS. For example, let's bring in autoscaling. Autoscaling is one of the best things to happen in DDoS protection ever. So let's go back to our web server example, where our web server can handle 10,000 requests per second, and we have 100,000 requests coming in. With autoscaling, these servers can keep scaling up. We might be able to handle 300,000 requests per second, and we can keep adding capacity while the attack is coming in. So we can temporarily thwart the attack with autoscaling. We can slow it down by adding capacity. Now, having said this, you're going to pay for all these autoscaling scales out, and you're going to be paying a lot for it, but it might still be worth it to keep your systems up and running. The last part that we're going to talk about with regards to DDoS protection is a content delivery network. See, when you're dealing with a content delivery network, and basically your servers are here, and you've got these CDNs, and the CDN is a private network throughout the world, and these connections are connected to, say, something like an edge location, where the user comes in and they hit the edge location, and if the data is stored there, it'll immediately be provided by a cache. And if the data is not stored there, the request will be forwarded to the web server, and then it'll be forwarded back to the cache, and then future requests will go to the cache, at least until the cache times out. But what something else happens when you're dealing with these types of content delivery networks is they don't forward, typically speaking, bad requests to the servers. So you can literally basically take out many of these bad requests directly at the edge of your network with the content delivery network, shut down the attack before it even gets to you. So now you know what is a DDoS attack and how to prevent it on the cloud. The next question we're going to ask you is, what is DHCP? And here we want to know what your basic IP knowledge is. And what we're going to ask is DHCP, or what we're hoping to hear is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. And DHCP works to automatically assign an IP address to your computers. See, if your systems don't have an IP address, they can't communicate on an IP network. So they need an IP address, and they must have a unique IP address. So you really have a couple of options here. Option one would be you would manually go to every computer and manually configure their IP addresses. Well, that's possible. What if you have 100,000 systems, or 200,000 systems, or 300,000 systems? Do you really want to go configure each one? Of course not. What you're going to use DHCP. It's going to automatically assign an IP address to your users, and it's going to be simple. So how does it work? The way DHCP works is when a new system comes up on a network, it sends a broadcast called a DHCP Discover. Hey, I'm on the network, I need an IP address. That's what the DHCP Discover packet is basically doing. And then from there, what'll happen is all the DHCP servers that are there will respond with something called the DHCP offer. I need an address, DHCP Discover. All the servers respond, DHCP offer. Now at this point, I have to pick which DHCP server that I choose to accept the request from, because we might be getting offered 10 addresses from 10 different DHCP servers. So in this state, the client forms a DHCP request, and it basically sends it directly to the server that it desires to receive the IP address from. And then the server that provides the IP address then says, I'm going to give you the address, DHCP acknowledge, you now have the address. So what's the process? Ask for one via DHCP Discover, get one from multiple servers via DHCP offer, then send a DHCP request to the server of your choice, and then the sender receives a DHCP acknowledgement message which says basically, here's your IP address, and the system keeps it. That is how Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol dynamically assigns IP addresses to systems. The next question we're going to ask you is another networking question. It is, what is a VLAN? And we're going to ask what is the VLAN so we can get into the more complicated concepts which are very common in cloud computing, like VLAN trunking. So let's first talk about what is a VLAN. So VLAN means just a virtual network. That's all it really is. So let's say you have a switch with 100 ports in it. By default, all 100 ports in the switch can talk to each other. So let's say you put 100 computers, plug in 100 computers via Ethernet into the switch. All 100 computers can talk to each other, all on the same subnet. And in many cases, that is just absolutely perfect. But what if you wanted to further segregate your network? What if you wanted to provide protection? Maybe you wanted to limit the users of finance to only access the things that they need, and the users of accounting to only access the things they need, and the users from HR to only access the things they need, and your operations team, your IT operations team might need access to everything. What you can do is you can take your switch and you can virtualize your switch. We have virtualized servers, we have virtualized switches. So you could take your switch and logically chop your switch to multiple switches, and that is what a virtual LAN is. A virtual LAN is basically taking a switch and chopping that switch into multiple logical switches. So you can segregate your users to enhance your security. That's why you would create something called a VLAN. Now, since we're talking about VLANs, we also want to talk about the concept of what is a VLAN trunk. And why am I talking about what is a VLAN trunk? After all, most of the networking is done for you on the cloud. The reason we're talking about what is a VLAN trunk is you will have to use 802.1q trunking when you're dealing with AWS and creating a direct connection. So what is a VLAN trunk? First and foremost, let's pretend you have a switch here and a switch here. And they're all in the same VLAN. All you have to do is run a cable between them and they'll talk. Now let's say you had 4 switches or 4 VLANs. You could plug in a cable from VLAN 1 to VLAN 2. VLAN 1 to VLAN 1, VLAN 2 to VLAN 2, VLAN 3 to VLAN 3, and VLAN 4 to VLAN 4, and everything would work perfectly. You could have 4 VLANs or 4 virtual LANs in one switch, 4 virtual LANs in another switch, and 4 cables between them, and everything's going to work great. But what if you didn't want to run 4 cables? What if you wanted to put in a secure manner VLAN 1, VLAN 2, VLAN 3, VLAN 4 on the same wire in between 2 switches? How could you do that? Well, you can, and that's where we talk about VLAN trunking. So what VLAN trunking is you've got 4 VLANs on one switch or 4 VLANs on another switch. You run a single cable between them, and somehow you miraculously make these VLANs communicate with each other. And how do you do that in a private and secure manner? You do it with something called a trunk. And what a trunk is it takes the wire and it puts something called a tag. And the tag we're talking about is going to be an 802.1q tag. And basically it's just a VLAN tag that will separate VLAN traffic from other VLANs on the wire. So you've got a switch with 4 VLANs, you have one cable between them, you add VLAN 1 with a .1q tag, VLAN 2 with its own .1q tag, VLAN 3 with its own .1q tag, and VLAN 4 with its own .1q tag. And in the process, you've now created an environment where 4 VLANs are being transmitted over a single wire, and their data is all logically separated and secure. Where does this come into play in a cloud computing environment? Well, on your data premises side, it's going to be everywhere, but also on the link between your organization and the cloud. See, when you connect over a direct connection, you basically have to send it on a VLAN over a trunk. And the reason you're sending your information over a VLAN with a .1q tag over a trunk is AWS is then going to take your information and your VLAN tag and then backhaul it to the network. And that's how they're going to keep your traffic separated from customer B's traffic, separated from customer C's traffic, separated from customer D's traffic, all on the same wire. They're going to use 802.1q trunking. So in today's video on Mastering the Cloud Architect Technical Interview, what did we cover? We talked about what is a DDoS attack and how do you prevent it. We talked about what is DHCP and how does it work. We asked the question, what is a VLAN? And we talked about what is a VLAN trunk. Let me tell you about some things that our organization does to assist the cloud architect community. Every Monday and every Thursday, we have a free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. On these webinars, we teach you everything you need to do to get hired. We teach you what should be on your resume, what the hiring manager desires in an employee, how to get cloud architect competent, and what you need to do to get your first cloud architect job. We do it completely free on Mondays and Thursdays. Now on Tuesdays, we have a cloud architect experience webinar. And on these webinars, we teach you how to get the right kind of cloud architect experience so you can get hired. And we do this every Tuesday. Not every Wednesday, but most Wednesdays, we do a YouTube Live. And what we do is we get on the YouTube Live and you can ask us any cloud architect career questions you may have. Bring us your cloud architect career questions and we will answer them real time. We want to make sure that you optimize your training so you can get your goals and dreams as fast as possible. And lastly, I'd like to let you know that if you're working on any AWS certifications, we've got you covered. We have a completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate ebook. I'll leave the link in the description below. And we have a free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate full course. And I'll leave the link in the description below. Our team is working on creating new and completely free books for the AWS Advanced Security and the AWS Advanced Networking. We aim to be a single source for all your cloud architect career development needs. And when it comes to certification training, we do everything we can to get you the either free or super low cost access to certification training. Thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in another video very soon.